A very good afternoon and a warm welcome to all our delegates joining in for a very interesting session on business leaders through the looking glass, an opportune moment. This session has been brought to you by our intelligence. Well, this year has been testing times for businesses across the globe. Organizations today are rebuilding and rebooting operation models to survive and earn profits in these very challenging times. Digital transformation is now becoming the only way forward. This very interesting roundtable will help us understand onto what our CXOs think are the best models and set a future roadmap. We'll also be focusing on how one can reshape the consumer and business behavior through technology, how one can truly use artificial intelligence to our benefit, and how we can work together formulating a developed vision for the future of technology and more. Joining us is our power packed panel. I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to Mr. Sanjeev Deshpande, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, Intelligence India and Middle East. Welcome, sir. May I also present to you Mr. Ashish Bhandari, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, Thermax Group. A warm welcome to Mr. Ravi Raghavan, Managing Director, Bharat Fritz Verna. May I also present to you Mr. Sudeep Goenka, Director, Goldie Group. A warm welcome to Mr. Chirag Bunlia, Group Chief Technology Officer, Embassy India. I'd also like to present to you Mr. Ganesh Ramachandran, Global Chief Information Officer, Alchem Laboratories. We also have with us Mr. Mukesh Rathi, Chief Information Officer, Dr. Reddy's Laboratories. And taking these conversations forward will be our session chair, Mr. Anirban Ghoshal, Editor, The Economic Times. Looking forward to a very, very interactive roundtable right here with some fantastic ideas coming from all of y'all.
Thank you so much, Isha, for this wonderful introduction. Thank you, everybody, for joining in. Uh, Before we start, a small introduction to what we're about to discuss here today. The topic for today is how business leaders can look at the post-pandemic situation via a lens of opportunity. Rising unemployment, hunger, malnutrition, poverty, and deaths. The coronavirus pandemic has reversed the course of the time for the human population. But we are the crown of creation. Although we have survived dangerous weather, economic instabilities, wars, and even pandemics before, the next threat always seems almost impossible to recover from. COVID 19 is no different. And India and Indian businesses has not been an exception. MOSPI, or the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, released data showing that India's first quarter GDP had contracted by 23.9%. While we continue only to stare at greater depths of despair, the only thing to do is rise. As the old adage goes, our greatest glory is not in never falling, but rising up every time we fall. The year 2020 has been a year of trying and testing this business model. Rebuilding and rebooting operational models have been at the apex for any business leader in order to thrive these unprecedented times. Digital transformation is now becoming the epicenter of every solution to a problem. This roundtable will help us understand on what CXOs think are the best models and set a roadmap in unity with technology to bring out the best in the organization and reach maximum profit optimization. With that, let me pose the first question to Mr. Deshpande. Mr. Deshpande, since these are extraordinary times, the leadership is also adapting. From your experience, from your lens, how are you seeing leadership adapt to these changes of the new normal, especially in terms of integrating technology, since technology is being called as the greatest leveler instead of being the greatest enabler?
Right. Thank you, Anirban. Thanks for the opportunity. So there are two aspects. Before I talk about the technology, the leadership today needs to be a lot more humane in approach. It has to be a lot more inclusive. It has to be a lot more collaborative. Empathy is the key word. So today, given where the world has gone through this pandemic, still we are in the midst of it. So the human angle is extremely critical. So leadership has to touch every life of the employee and the customers and the partners and so on. Now, how do we exactly do that? Without the technology, not only the execution of the business is almost impossible, but even managing the business, reaching out to employees, engaging with the customers, everything probably would not have been possible if we were not adopting the right technologies. So all the technologies that allow us to work from anywhere and connect to wherever people are, I think is the key. And also giving the right insight, to help us make the right decisions, be it in terms of predictive analytics or the advanced analytics. So all those things are key. It's a combination of technologies coupled with the human approach is the defining moment now for the leadership.
But moving on, as we heard in the last discussion, that companies are defined by how they handle crisis, and switching gears to look at opportunities, because most big CEOs have said that everybody should look at the pandemic as a land of opportunity. Uh, so starting with Mrs. Deshpande, how are you seeing? I mean, we are seeing all companies invest into technology, but how has been that journey from a digital transformation point of view, and how soon are we going to actually see these companies reap rewards?
Right. Thanks for the question, Anirban. We, being in the IT industry, are serving different industries. Our customers span across 9 or 10 different industries within our country. So if I just take an example of the automotive industry, so the companies that were heavily relying on dealer network now started to reach to the customer directly. So it's direct to the customer. So that is one of their channels of sales now. Similarly, if we look at a lot of retails, e-commerce has become the primary channel of, the people who probably would not have thought about commerce cloud now are thinking about commerce cloud. Lot of manual processes, not only for the hygienic reasons but also for the efficiency reasons now are being changed over to more either automation or more efficient, and also a lot of intelligence is being built into the processes. So your shop floor is changing, the sales outlets, the sales channels are rapidly changing. Now, given the problems that we had during the pandemic, where the companies faced double whammy, you had a supply chain disruption, then you also had a very volatile demand situation. So, in order to meet the very volatile demand situation, fluctuating demand situation, and then trying to match with a lot of constraints that you had on the supply side, companies started to invest in proper demand management planning type of activities. So overall, I think from the IT services perspective, now we see a tremendous opportunity in making sure that the companies have robust, ERP systems to run their operations. There are excellent systems of engagement, where people could, for example, be it for the HR or Salesforce, or their procurement teams, or for the field operations, and wherever they are, they have the systems that can give them the information from wherever they are on whichever device that they ask for. And then in terms of consumers, the experience that the customers or the companies are now trying to deliver to the consumer is probably the only differentiator. So, if you look at their mobile development or sorry, mobile applications or the websites, the ease of use, the pricing, the simplicity of their product and the offerings, and the knowledge that they're going to impart to the customers. Now, the second aspect of it is I just mentioned the field service, but once you deliver the product, now whatever that the product will give the experience, but the post sales, the post customer service. So you have companies have started to invest in the excellence across all of the different business functions. Now, one single company cannot do it all. I think if you see, that's why you see a lot more partnerships evolve. Very complex supply chains are evolving. So it means from the IT services perspective, we are working with very large end-to-end customers who have pretty much who can do everything on their own. Also working with the companies that use multiple partners. So our ability to bring all of those solutions together onto a platform is also giving us a tremendous opportunity. So overall, from the IT services perspective, Anirban, even though we have seen the consulting market kind of take a kind of a nosedive in the last quarter, but we started to see that come back up. The managed cloud offerings, I think, are very stable. Managed services offerings are going up, and next 2 quarters we see even consulting catching up. But beyond that, we are just seeing a lot of opportunities on the IT services perspective. So overall, but there are, and this is not a common story for every industry. Luckily, this happens to be in this industry we serve. There are certain industries which are probably much worse hit, and probably they could take much longer time to recover. But in the industries that we serve, for example, pharma, manufacturing, high tech, automotive, we started to see a more V-shaped kind of a demand return. So, yeah, that's where I would leave it, Anirban.